The Top Floor Please podcast, where women in leadership rise together. I'm your host, Melissa McCormick, executive coach and founder of the Grace and Salt Leadership Academy. This is your space to find clarity, grow in confidence, and lead with bold authenticity. Whether you're navigating the boardroom, building your team, or stepping into new territory, you're not alone. Let's talk real challenges, real growth, and real leadership because the top floor isn't just a place, it's a mindset. Alrighty then, let's get started. All right. Welcome back to the Top Floor podcast, Top Floor Please podcast. I'm your host, Melissa McCormick, and today we are diving into one of those necessary leadership moments that many people either rush through or avoid entirely, and that is performance reviews. So I've got two podcasts on the same topic. It's that time of year. So whether your company has a high-tech automated review system, like ADP or Paylocity or any of those kind of review systems that are electronic, or if you're still using paper, it doesn't matter. The process usually looks the same. You rate yourself, your boss rates you, and then ideally you have that discussion about it. But oftentimes the boss skips the discussion, or it becomes a checklist conversation that doesn't really go anywhere, right? So today we are going to flip that script. This is all about how you can take ownership of your own performance review. So how to prepare for it, how to write your self-evaluation with intention, and how to lead the conversation if your boss doesn't, okay? All right, so step one, I want you to be clear, concise, and credible. What does that mean? When rating yourself, focus on results, okay? Don't remove all the fluff words. Just keep, it's kind of like when I was writing the book, Grace and Salt. My first draft was 60,000 words. And then my editor said, that's way too much. Like if you're saying two sentences that basically say the same thing, you only need one sentence. So then I took it down to 30,000 words. I ended up at about 45,000. But you get my drift. When you're writing your feedback for your performance review, take out the fluff. Like for those of us that love, language and we're speaking about whatever it is and we like to tell stories, take that out. Like don't do it. Nobody wants to read a novel. Remember that your boss has to read not just yours, but a bunch of them. So keep it clear and concise. Use results whenever possible. Metrics speak volumes. You want to focus on facts and not emotion. Make sense? Okay. So that would be metrics could be dollars saved. It could be projects delivered on time. It could be within budget. It could be the number of XYZ that you were supposed to complete, whatever it might look like. But tie everything back into those business outcomes. That's super important. Avoid vague statements like, I work hard or I support the team. Instead, say something like this. Say something like, led a cross-department project that reduced customer response time by 20%. You notice that sentence did not say I led, it just says led, because it's obvious that it's you, because it's your performance review. Make sense? So led a cross-department or cross-functional project team that reduced customer response by 20%. Okay? Delivered X project under budget and ahead of schedule. Okay? There's facts that can back that up. Clarity builds credibility. Your self-review is not bragging. It's demonstrating your value. So get comfortable with that. Okay? So that's step one, which is be clear, concise, and credible. Step two, identify the gaps and growth goals. So before your meeting, compare your self-assessment on how you think to your bosses, how your boss might rate you or how they did rate you. So some systems and some bosses, because it's different even in the same organization, you could have, so here's how I used to do it. I used to have them rate it and then we'd have the discussion and then I would rate. And then we'd have another discussion. And the reason I did that was because I didn't want to create any contention with the employee. For example, let's just say the employee rated themselves a 5 in collaboration, and I rated them a 3. If I release those ratings before our discussion, that person may be coming into the discussion with a different mindset than I want them to be. And maybe they're right. I can't be everywhere that they are, especially the higher up in the organization you get. So it's important to listen to that employee first before you set your ratings. Now, I am not saying that you allow the employee to influence your rating. I am not saying that at all. In fact, what I would do is I would rate but I wouldn't release those ratings because it was an electronic system. So I wouldn't release those ratings. We would get together and then I would tell them, so you rated yourself a 5. Let's talk about that. I'm looking at it around a 3, but tell me what it is about this particular competency that you rated yourself a 5. Just let's talk about it. And this is where I'm at. And sometimes I'd be like, oh, I didn't realize that. Okay, that makes sense. Let's agree on a 4. Like I can't get to 5, but I can get to a 4. Yeah, based on what you've given me, the evidence that you've provided. Or they may go, oh, yeah, I hadn't really thought about it that way. I thought this competency meant this, right? So it ends up being a conversation. That was the way I did it. You do not have to do it that way. I just felt that was just a way that made it more conversational and more about development than about critiquing. So, okay, but identify those gaps. So you want to, as the employee, I'm speaking to the employee now, as the employee, you want to take a look, you want to be clear, concise, have your metrics, and then you want to think, okay, how's my boss going to rate me on that? If you don't have those ratings, if you have the ratings and you see it, then I want you to look at the gaps and go, really? Why? And have an open mind. Don't try not to be defensive. Try to look at it from a posture of your boss's perspective. Okay, this is why, because they defined this competency differently than I did, evidently, because that's how it sounds with their comments. But take your time before you're going to go into the meeting. Be sure to be looking at it from that perspective as well. So okay, before your meeting, compare your self-assessment to how you think your boss might rate you. Look for those gaps and where might your perception differ from theirs. Again, that is if you don't already have them. Some organizations, some bosses release them before they have the discussion, some release after. It just really depends on your situation. But come prepared with solutions and goals. For example, you could say, I noticed I rated myself higher in communication. Can you share some examples where I can improve? Like, I rated myself a 5. I think I'm pretty good at communication. You rated me a 3. How do I get to a 4? Like, what does a 4 look like with regards to communication? How could I do things differently? Or what is it that you rated me a 3? What is it about my communication that doesn't make sense to you, or something like that, right? What would success look like to move from meets expectations to exceeds expectations? That's what I was just saying. That's leadership. That's taking initiative to close that gap. And then it also brings down the defensiveness too, right? And hopefully your boss is prepared to answer that question. And if they aren't, then say, no, I get it. But if you could provide me with some specific ways that I could go from a 3 to a 4, that would really help me with my goals for this next year and knowing where I need to work in certain areas. Yeah, then you're the leader. And I know for some employees, that's really hard because they're thinking, why is that my job? Like, shouldn't the boss be doing this? Why is that my job? Well, because it is. Sometimes we have to lead our bosses. I call it managing up. Sometimes we have to do that. And if and you're going to succeed far greater in this organization if you learn how to do that. Or you've got a boss who is good at that, and then you can have that kind of peer-to-peer conversation, even though it's a it's a boss to employee. Okay, step 3, if your boss avoids the conversation, you lead it yourself. Okay. Some leaders skip that review discussion because it's uncomfortable or they're busy. If that happens, take a proactive approach. I'd love to schedule a 30-minute talk with you about my performance. I have some thoughts and goals and I'd like your feedback on it. Yeah, something as simple as that. When you lead with curiosity instead of defensiveness, you turn the review into a growth conversation instead of a critique session. And it's the critique, the feedback, that whole piece of it that makes it uncomfortable.
But when we talk about growth, when we talk about development, then all of a sudden, our hackles can go down and we can really kind of focus it in a different way. And it's not personal, and it's much more about growth and growing within the organization. And the fourth step, shift from evaluation to development. This isn't about proving your worth, even though part of the challenges that we have with performance reviews is in many organizations, performance reviews are tied, whatever that rating is, that's tied to the percentage of increase that you receive. And that can be tough, right? So I'm going to rate myself a 5 because I want 5%. Not that it's a direct correlation, not by any means. But it is, right? It's a pay, many organizations, most organizations, it's more of a pay for performance, right? The better performer you are, the higher increase that you get. Makes sense. It totally makes sense. That's what this country was built upon. So you want to be sure that you're showing that performance. But then when we know that there's money tied to it, it could get a little contentious. So I want you to try to not go into it with proving your worth so that you get a higher raise. You should be paid for your performance level. And if your performance level is not where it should be, then I'm sorry, you do not receive the top amount that you should get. You should get based on your performance. Okay. So I want you to use language that communicates ownership and curiosity. I'd love your perspective on where I can stretch next. What additional skills would make me more valuable to the team? Here's what I'm already doing, and here's where I want to improve. Grace keeps the tone open and salt keeps the direction clear. These examples I just gave you, I'd love your perspective on where I can stretch next. What additional skills would make me more valuable to the team? And here's what I'm already doing well, and here's where I want to improve. That's leadership. You are leading them. Stay on your toes and give them, be proactive, regardless of whether your boss wants to or not. That is very, very important. And come with some goals and use SMART goals, right? SMART goals. If you don't know the definition of the SMART goals, I'm going to give it to you right now. Be specific. S is be specific. Have a specific goal. M is measurable. Make sure that the goal can be measured. Do not use any kind of generic verbiage. It must be measurable. A, attainable. Is it attainable? Is it in your wheelhouse? Is it something that you can control? Is it relevant to your role and to who you are within the organization? And finally, is it time bound? Right? We can't just say we're going to increase revenue by 4%. By when? By April? By December? By when? Okay, so SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time bound. Make sure that your goals and go in with them. And if you don't have time to figure them out, or you want to talk through it with your boss first to say, these are the areas that I want to focus on, I'm going to put a couple of SMART goals together and I'll come back with you and let's agree on them so that we're aligned going into the next year. Yeah, as simple as that. Lead the discussion, because here's the thing, if you work for a boss who does not want to have this conversation and you lead it, they will be so grateful. Because, and if you're being vulnerable and humble and honest with regards to your performance and open to a discussion about development, it's going to make it appear, that conversation is going to be not one that you avoid or that you really do not want to go into. It's going to be one that you expect, and it's more about expectation of, hey, I really want to have this discussion with my boss. The other thing that I would recommend is that not to have it just once a year. Like, have these every quarter. You don't have to be formal about it, but at least just say, hey, I just want to get together. This is where I'm at with my goals. Is there anything that needs to shift? I mean, again, you be the leader. You show up. You are going to be much better off because of it. Okay. Do not wait for someone to define your success. Leadership isn't about waiting for feedback. It's about seeking it and using it to grow stronger. Let me say that again. Leadership isn't about waiting for feedback. In fact, the word wait is a 4-letter word that I cannot stand. Leadership isn't about waiting for feedback, it's about seeking it and using it to grow stronger. Okay, so your action step. I want you to review your self-assessment when the right timing is. I don't know if that's now or in January, whenever that is. Review your self-assessment. Identify one strength that you want to amplify and one skill you want to strengthen. And then schedule that conversation with your boss. Don't defend your score, but develop your strategy. And you don't even have to wait until it's time for your performance review. You could do it now. You could just go, hey, I was listening to this podcast and I really want to just try this now rather than waiting until our performance review. Because there should be no surprises when you get to your performance review. There should be none because you're having this conversation throughout the year anyway, right? Okay, super. Well, thank you so much for listening and hanging out with us on the top floor. If today's episode gave you something to think about, please share it with a friend. That helps feed that algorithm. And be sure to subscribe and follow and do all the things wherever you are listening to this podcast or watching this podcast. If you are ready to rise, if you are ready to uh, strengthen your leadership skills or anything like that, and you think that I can help you, please go to graceandsaltleadership.com for more information on how you can work with Grace and Salt Leadership Academy. I would absolutely love to meet you and to know more about you. If you have a specific podcast episode or topic that you want me to address, please send me a DM me or um, email me at hello@graceandsaltleadership.com, whatever that looks like. And I listen to those and I put those in the next, because I've got my own topics, right? I've got my own schedule, but I want to focus on those topics that my audience cares about. So if you have something specific you want me to touch or address, then please send a DM or an email. All right. As we close here, just remember, you don't have to lead like everyone else. You just have to lead like you. All right, everyone. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.
Thanks so much for hanging out on the top floor. If today's episode gave you something to think about or a little boost, share it with your friends to keep the momentum going. And hey, if you're ready to rise, find your voice, and lead with clarity and confidence, we'd love to connect with you. Reach out at graceandsaltleadership.com to learn how Grace and Salt can support your growth. Remember, you don't have to lead like everyone else, just lead like you. All right, I'll see you next time on the top floor.